Good morning, everyone. This morning we're going to work on wire figures, and we're going to be using wire, we're going to be using plaster, we're going to be using tin foil and tape. You're also going to want to have a pair of scissors and a warm container of water. Also, I might warn you, you might want to put down some paper underneath you because plaster is messy. So in your Go kits, you have a container of plaster, and you also have a couple sheets of aluminum foil. You might want some more aluminum foil. If you don't have any at home and you need some more, paper towel or crushed up toilet paper or something like that can work just as well. So we are going to be making two figures, and I'd like the two figures to be interacting somehow or not interacting, as you might see in the George Siegel PowerPoint. And those figures are going to be constructed using all the materials that I just listed off. So get your workspace figured out. And just so you know, my workspace is, I've got nice paper down, I've got my water here, got my scissors at hand. Plaster is messy, it's dusty, it does come out of clothes, so just so you know that. And it's not bad for your skin, that's why they use it for setting bones and things like that. But it does get all over the place if you're not careful. So don't do this project on your brand new rug or your suede couch or anything like that. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is make the figure, make the armature for the figure. So armature is it's a great word, A-R-M-A-T-U-R-E, armature. And basically what that is a skeleton. So it's the form that you're going to make before you add things on top of it. So it's your structure. So to make a nice figure, I usually take an arm and a half length. So I'm holding this with my pointer finger and my thumb, and I'm stretching it out, and I'm going to cut it right about where my shoulder is. And you can use a pair of scissors. I said in my demo earlier, don't use a nice pair of scissors. Like if you've got a crappy pair of scissors around, use those. Because every time you cut metal with scissors, you're going to ding the blade. You can see these scissors are relegated to plaster. The other thing I like to do is just put a little curve in the end of that wire because that wire's sharp and you don't want to get it in the face. And if your cat is around trying to play with your wire, you don't want your cat getting it in the face either because this could be a nasty, like, cornea scratch. Okay, so theoretically what I have here are little feet. They may end up the feet, they may end up the knees, we'll see. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm not giving it a big crease up here, but I am going to give it a loop, and that loop is going to be the head. So I've looped it and I've twisted, I don't know, 3 times or so. So off the head come the shoulders and the arms. So I'm going to go out about 5 inches, 5.5 inches, and make a right angle. And at this right angle, I'm going to twist it a few times till it comes back toward the head. I'm not going all the way. You can, but then your torso looks weird. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so I've got 2 arms. This one I'm going to give one more twist just because. Yeah. Okay, and I've got a torso. So here's my torso. I'm going to twist proportionately. Now, I'm left with these super, super long legs, which is fine if you want to make a really abstract figure or, you know, figure skater or something. Some people just have really long legs. But I'm going to fold it up so it looks a little more proportional. And so that loop is probably going to kind of be absorbed by the knee there. And same thing here. Now, this is your chance if you've got like one leg longer than the other. This is where you resolve that. Okay. So you've got this nice little figure. Now your figure should probably be doing something. He's pretty flat, Stanley, from there. So I'm going to say, I like my figures to be leaping or jumping or dancing or, having their knees bent or something. So that they're curved somehow or doing something maybe a little more interesting than just like standing there terrified. So what we need to do now is add some muscle to that. So the muscle is going to be the tinfoil. Tinfoil, tape, and whatever else you might have. So just a couple things to keep in mind when you're putting muscle on your body. Muscle and fat too, because it's pretty easy to wind up with a super emaciated figure, and you might not want that. It's not very interesting to look at. So just in terms of the human body and how we're constructed, my arm is thicker up here than it is here. My arm is thicker here than it is down here. My leg is thicker at my hip than it is down at my knee. My leg is thicker at my knee than it is down at my ankle. So sort of be thinking about that. In other words, don't make like a really thick wrist and a tiny elbow, right? That just doesn't look right, unless you want it not to look right. And the other thing about the human form is we're kind of proportionate or symmetrical. So we're pretty similar on both sides. So when I'm using the tinfoil, I tend to tear it in half, roughly in half for each thing. So like that might be the belly. This might be the upper leg. These might be the lower legs. So you can see where I'm going with that. I'm going to kind of concentrate on trying to not have one side heavier than the other. I would like you to try to do it kind of proportionately the first time. If you want to try abstraction the second one, that's fine too. Okay, and then you just are going to twist this fat and muscle onto your figure. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm tapering as I get to the elbow, and I'm keeping this like thicker. And here I'm going to use it, make it thicker at the elbow and taper as I get toward the wrist. And all that can be kept in place with skin. And the skin is going to ultimately be the plaster. But right now I want to keep the tinfoil in place, so I'm using a little tape. So you can see kind of what I've done here, and you can kind of make it. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so you're going to do that to the whole body. And so what I've done with this one, I added a fair amount to the butt and to the thighs, and I probably could use a little more. And I probably could use a little more in the tum-tum too. And I tried to make some breasts here, but those are a little paltry too. You don't have to genderize your form, but you can if you want to. So this is when you start adding the skin. And the actual skin is the plaster. So like I said, plaster's messy, so I often like to put the roll in something. You can just use that bag that you have. But I'm going to tip my computer down here so you can sort of see what I'm doing. Old pair of scissors to cut this. You're going to cut it in strips. And so I often double it over or even triple it over to cut my strips. That way I don't have to do like as much cutting. And you don't want to cut it anywhere there's water, because as soon as you get any water on that stuff, it's going to set up. And you don't want that to happen until you're ready to put the skin on. So make sure your water supply and your feed pile are in a place where you're not going to drip water as you're passing over that. So I'm right-handed, my water is here, my feed is on the left. So I'm feeding from the left over to the right, working on my piece, rather than dripping all over that. Okay, so take your figure, and at this point you want your figure to be roughly in the shape that you want it to be in. So in other words, if you make like flat Stanley at this point, it's going to pretty much stay flat Stanley. So you want to have your twists and your turns in here to some degree. And all you're going to do is take this gauze that has plaster in it, and you're going to dip it in nice warm water, because you might as well have the spa experience. And then you're going to just cover your figure. And what I do is sometimes dip my hands back in the water and kind of seal up some of those little holes. If you just, put your hands in a little bit of plaster dust and smudge that stuff back on, because if you've got a lot of perforations showing, that means the plaster's not really adhering very well. So you want to make sure that you're like really smoothing it. So smooth that right over, and like really mush it down. And I just kind of wind it. And you can do as many layers as you want. But you can see where I'm going with this. It's starting to like really get covered. I just did this 5 minutes ago, and it's pretty much set up. And you'll notice plaster gets really, really cold and kind of dank feeling, and it's not terribly nice stuff to feel once it's starting to set up. But that will, once that dries, you can really paint it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. But one thing you can't do is move it. So you want to make sure before you are plastered that your form is in the shape that you want it to be. And just a little tidbit, don't forget, you do not want to throw a lot of plaster down the sink. So what I'm going to do is drain the water off of this at the end of the day, and I'll probably have about that much plaster dust like all settled down in the bottom. So what I'll do, I often just let it dry and then crack it out and throw it away. Or you can drain it off and then take a paper towel into the bottom of your thing and like wipe it out that way. So either way, that works pretty well. Probably don't want to get a lot of plaster dust in your computer keys. That's definitely something like, it's just dust, but it's not dust that you want to breathe, and it's not dust that you want to have in your electronics. So make sure you've got your 2 figures uploaded for next week. And speaking of your pictures, just one little thing. One thing I'm noticing is that when people photograph their picture with all this stuff happening in the back, like, I can't tell what your artwork is, so it's a little bit tough to see sometimes. So what I'm suggesting is that that's not very good, choose a background that you get some contrast on. So if this is painted white or black, make sure that you photograph this against something that you're going to get some nice contrast against. And it might be just the floor, like, taking your phone over the top of the thing and shooting it against the floor or the kitchen cupboard or whatever it is. So just kind of be mindful of that, because a lot of really good artwork gets like totally lost in your backgrounds. Okay, so have fun. Let me know if I can help you, and I'm signing off. See you later. Bye.